Alright, so welcome to week 3 of our business series. One of the things we're going to make sure we talk about a fair bit today is roles and responsibilities. Now, anyone who has spoken to me in the last 5 years about their business knows that this is probably the biggest sticking point, and it is easily the biggest hurdle that I find growing businesses struggle with. One of the things when it comes to roles and responsibilities is coming to the realization that maybe you're not the best at everything. And whilst when you're growing the business, and it was a small business, you were, and because you needed to be out of out of necessity. As that business grows, the role you played and all of the plates that you had spinning become the handbrake for the future success of the business. So when we're talking about roles and responsibilities, we're not only talking about others within the business, and then we talk about that org chart that you wrote. We want to make sure that the role you play, everything else feeds from that. When we follow this, even in our business, I like to make sure that we've got multiple points of view in the room, because even if I think I'm good at something, then someone else actually chimes in and says, "Oh, maybe we give that to someone else." It's not about your ego, or it's about playing to your strengths. I know we want to work on our weaknesses, but this is all about strengths. The business hinges off you working purely to your strengths. So what we want to do is make a list of all of the items that are your role and are your responsibility, coupled with, if you're not going to do them, who else is going to do them? I see a lot of feedback from new businesses when they need to do everything themselves and they can't afford, limited funds are a really big issue, and they don't yet have the ability to pay someone else to do it. We want to make sure that that's fine, and obviously completely agree with that. But at some point, we're going to have to pass that on. Now, knowing when that point to pass it on is a real thing. So it's, if it's about getting a bookkeeper to do the accounts rather than you getting up at 5 in the morning and doing them, well, let's do that. When the business hits this point, we're going to hire a bookkeeper to do our daily reconciliations. It's probably the easiest one, right? So it doesn't matter what field you're in. It might be that you're a plumber and you want to do all of the plumbing yourself. That's great. But when we get X amount of jobs in, or we turn over a certain amount of revenue, then that's our trigger point, so that there's already a preconceived notion that that's when you make that decision. You won't get decision fatigue. You've already made all the decisions. You now just need to action them at that time. Outsourcing is probably the easiest way to do that, especially at a starting company, where that's outsourcing of bookkeeping, where that's outsourcing to a contracting role and not having those payroll expenses or something like that. Those things make a massive difference. That way, when the business is big enough, you can bring it in-house, but it doesn't limit your scalability in the meantime. So as every small business owner knows, there's a massive element with a growing business that you got to let it go. There's got to be a time in which you let that go, so that you're not the be-all and end-all. And we've just talked about making sure that we've allocated those responsibilities, but letting go is the only way that you're going to build a business that's bigger than yourself. Where we need to note that it is a real thing is because most of the time we find here that people who are coming in to see us to start a business are really good technicians in their own world. They're a plumber and they're a really good plumber. Great, I'm going to go and start a plumbing company. I'm not saying you're not a good plumber, but I'm saying that you've got to make sure that you keep identifying those strengths and you let go of the thing that you're not good at. It might be office admin. It might be, you might get another plumber who's a better plumber than you. Get them to do that bit, or whether it's in the income production or in the operation of the business. Everyone who's built a business knows that this might be, or knows that this is the hardest tipping point when you've reached a couple of staff. So with limited funds, it is harder to outsource initially, but utilizing that as the time in learning new skills for yourself within the business, so that you can use them to train the next person who is going to be responsible for that task, is a really good use of that in-between time. You need to make sure when you're building that, whether that's outsourced or internally, you need to make sure that you're trusting those people to perform that role. Being clear on what their responsibility is and trusting that they're going to do it the way that you've taught them is the only way that you're going to be able to let that go without micromanaging each of those items. On this page, what you'll find is a list of roles and responsibilities. We find that you get a lot of value in documenting what the responsibility is and which role it's allocated to, so that people not only know what my role is, but what does that even mean and what do I need to be responsible for and other people can lean on me for. Time management. I see a lot of things on the internet about how people want to give you different techniques on how to manage it. There's books on it, there's Instagram channels on it, but one of the things we find is it's got to work for you, right? So whether it's an ideal week, whether it's the Pomodoro technique that we've got here, whether it's time blocking, whatever suits your personality or your behavior best is going to be effective. The only outcome that you do not want to achieve here is being reactive all day, every day. You'll find yourself more fatigued, you'll find yourself more irritable, and reactive people don't make good decisions. If you've used time blocking and you know exactly what you need to do in a set period of time, then other people can work around you in that time as well. They'll know what you're doing and they'll know not to come and interrupt you so that you can perform the task you need. Being reactive is one of the biggest traits that we seem to find from small business owners. It might be because we handle chaos well and that we're able to adapt really quick, but what it means is that it's really hard for others to work around. If we reduce the focus on being reactive and increase it on being proactive, everyone else knows exactly what we're doing, how we're doing it, and they're able to perform their roles around us. Secondly, it helps you not only focus just on what you've got to do that day, but that short, medium, and long-term focus on your business strategy. Like I said in the previous video, having a clearly laid out plan gives you the freedom for not having to make decisions on which strategy suits each piece at each time. Every piece of the strategy leads to that final destination, that vision that you've already set out. Being proactive means that you've already made the decision and now you're just implementing those items. You'll find that team cohesiveness, you'll find that team culture, all of those things come from being proactive. All right, so we've given you a bit of work with roles and responsibilities. We've got time management. Focusing on those roles and responsibilities, who is responsible for that is a very difficult task because you have to hold them accountable. If it is you, hold yourself accountable. If it isn't you, then you're paying for that service, you've got to make sure you follow up. It's unfortunately the role of a small business owner. Thanks very much for following along. I appreciate your time, and we'll see you next week.